So that whole story plays out in the quest lines. You're going to get to go through that whole storyline. You actually even have an encounter with Ragnaros and basically send him back into the elemental plane of fire. So in this raid, you're actually going to go there. Now, we've all fought Ragnaros in Molten Core, obviously. People know about Ragnaros and what he's been. But that was just that was an image of Ragnaros. He was in Azeroth. It wasn't Ragnaros as he is like in the elemental plane of fire, which is his home. So the idea is to give players an example of what the actual power of Ragnaros is. Obviously, the fight will be completely different and have all new elements. But we really think it's a chance for players to get a little bit more of that backstory of what was going on with Ragnaros all along. But it also plays in really well with what's happening with the quest lines in Hyjal. So along the same concept of bite-sized chunks, we're planning for 7 bosses in this raid. We're trying to stay away from doing, like Scott mentioned, it feels really great if you can get through a whole raid in one night. Because then in a week, you can do multiple raids. You know, you might be able to do one raid Tuesday, another raid on Thursday, and maybe one Saturday. Instead of having to spend 3 nights in Ulduar getting through, 15 bosses, this way we're hoping maybe players can do something like they can kill 5 bosses here, 6 bosses here, and then a single solo boss like Malagos kind of concept somewhere else. So we really feel like a number like this fits really well. So usually at the Dungeons and Raids panels, we like to show a few layouts of new things we're working on. This is how we always start on a dungeon or a raid, is we basically lay it out on paper and get a feel for what it's going to be and how it's going to play out. So this is a look at the layout for Firelands Raid. So the plan is for it to be an elemental plane of fire. So obviously there's going to be lava all over the place. Up in that northern section, that's Sulfuran Keep. And Sulfuran Keep is going to be where you actually fight Ragnaros inside of. So it's going to feel similar. It's going to be an outdoor area on the outside with bosses spawned outdoors. So you'll be running around, kind of like similar to Hyjal Raid. And then at some point, you're going to go into an interior, into Sulfuran Keep, and then that's where you'll actually end up fighting Ragnaros. But we like this. It gives a little bit of mix-up because you're both outdoor and you're indoor. When you're on the outdoor side, you'll be able to use your mount to get around, to get to different places. And then when you go inside, you'll get a whole different experience. Gives us a chance to mix up the art a little bit and also the encounters, because we can do different things with an encounter that's in an interior room versus an encounter that's outdoors. So now we've got a couple pieces of concept art based on this. So what this is a new thing we started doing with Northrend, where basically we're able to take that 2D image that you just saw before this, the layout, and we have a concept artist translate it into a vision of what it would look like in 3D. So this is a look of that. So in the back, you can see Sulfuran Keep, and then you can see the outer edges of the elemental plane of fire kind of wrapping around it. And it just helps us get a better sense of feel of what this place is going to feel like, what it's going to look like. This is a more close-up shot of Sulfuran Keep. And then this is a little look of a color study of what we're kind of feeling like the place is going to feel like. Obviously, it's going to be dark. It's going to be a lot of red colors, a lot of lava, fire, smoke in the air. We really want to give that vibe that this is where Ragnaros came from and this is what it's going to feel like. So something we learned over the years is that if we ever have a chance, anytime we deliver a patch, we don't want to leave anyone out. So one of the biggest things is trying to always deliver a 5-player dungeon along with a raid. And patch 4.0 won't be any different, so we're planning to deliver a new dungeon, which would be Abyssal Maw. Abyssal Maw will be a continuation of the story that players are playing through in Vashj'ir. So in Vashj'ir, we already have a dungeon that's shipping with Cataclysm, the Throne of the Tides. So players are going to play through that and already get a base of the story of what's going on. And it's the same issue that we're dealing with in Hyjal, where basically you're going to play through the quests all the way through, and when you get into the dungeon, you're going to actually know what's happening. So it's not going to feel like something that's foreign to you. Oh, and it's nothing like Oculus. You're going to see the layout here of what this dungeon looks like, and it's separate areas, like almost like underwater. We've got these risen areas, and players are going to play on these each individual areas, and then they're going to travel from one to the next. So you'll get a view of what that looks like here. We're planning on 4 bosses for this. Anything between 3 and 5 we feel like always feels pretty good for a dungeon. So this is a look at the layout. Same deal here. This is what we start with and how we get things going. So you can see all that blue area is basically like a chasm, because this dungeon takes place underwater. The entire dungeon is similar to our entire first zone of Vashir. So everything about this will be under the water in the elemental plane of water. And we have a ton of new tech that we're introducing with Cataclysm that helps deal with players being underwater. Whenever you touch the ground, you actually lock to the ground on the bottom. And then playing with your character at that point feels just like you would be on land. So we've done all new animations for the races, so when they walk underwater, they feel like they're actually moving through the water plane. But for you as a player, you're not dealing with odd camera angles or creatures that are swimming above you or 3D, perception issues that might feel weird. So we want to get that vibe and that feeling that players are underwater, but historically, obviously, underwater combat has not been a strong point. So we wanted to make sure that doing something like this didn't affect the gameplay. And I think we can definitely say that we know that's going to work out well because we've already seen it in Vashir. So here's some concept art. The concept art here, obviously, it's going to feel similar to what we're doing with Throne of the Tides because it's built by the same race. So we want these two things to feel tied together. It's almost the same thing like we do with Winged Dungeons, where we want them to feel like they're from the same place, but you're going to get a very different experience in either one. It's another piece of concept art. And to close out today, we have a new feature we haven't talked with anyone about. This is a feature we tried desperately to get in for Cataclysm, but it turned out that there was a number of things we wanted to do with this feature to actually bump it up and bring it up to a level where we just felt like it would be awesome. So we decided to hold it, and it's something that we're working on for a future patch. And we wanted to give you guys a sneak peek at what it means and what it is. And for us, it's the idea of doing basically enhanced dungeon maps. So everyone noticed and obviously saw that we put in 2D maps in Northrend for all of the dungeons. So when you go into a dungeon, instead of just having to look at your mini map and seeing that small portion of the dungeon you're on, we did full 2D maps like you would see for any zone in World of Warcraft. The response for that was very strong. A lot of players really loved that concept. They liked seeing where they were. And for Cataclysm, we've actually gone back and we've done 2D maps for every single dungeon in the game. So that's our first step, and we thought that was great. Now